Hello fellow makeup lovers, how are you guys doing? Today I have a BYOP for you inspired by the new Glamlite Red Velvet Cupcake Palette. Basically, long story short, I mentioned in my video on this palette how I was disappointed by the reveal because even though this is a beautiful color story, it is not what I think of at all when I think about Red Velvet Cupcakes, and there is no true red in this palette. Even this shade right here called Red Velvet pulls very hot pink, so I was just like a little flabbergasted, like how are we gonna have a Red Velvet Cupcake palette without any actual red shades? So I asked y'all if you wanted me to do my version of what I wish the palette had been, and so many of y'all said yes that I knew I just had to go ahead and do it. Here is what my palette looks like. I just used shadows that I have in my collection. Basically, I went through and I chose all the red shades first that really spoke to me, shades that were true reds. We've got some metallic, some matte options. We've got this shade here, which to me is like a brown with a red kind of look to it, and that gives me the most like red velvet cake vibes. After I had those sorted, I went through and added some pops of pink, kind of inspired by like having complementary colors and like the sprinkles and whatnot. I added a little pop of cream cheese icing, so I really like how this turned out. I feel like it's super vibrant and fun. So for today's video, I'm just gonna go through, tell you the name of each shade in this palette, do some swatches, and then at the end I will show you how I got this eye look today using a bunch of shades from this palette. So the first shade here is Red Giant from Terra Moons, which is a beautiful iridescent white with a pinky red shift to it. As you can see, it is just super intense, and I just knew I had to go ahead and include this. I figured it gave me like the white like icing kind of look, but had a little bit more dimension and something special to it. So there's Red Giant. Looking amazing. I mean, you can kind of see how it looks on camera, but in person it's just that much better. And then next we have the shade that was inspired by cream cheese. This is Brnovich 100, and it's a really beigey light shade, but it has like just a little bit of a yellowy undertone, like not like super yellow, but you know cream cheese isn't true white. It like has just a little tiny little bit of color to it, so that's what I put here. For me, it doesn't really do that much like in the palette. I wouldn't reach for it that often, but it could be nice to have with all these reds if you didn't want to blend them out with something pink. Next we have another shade here from Brnovich, and this is a really beautiful kind of pastel pink, but it has a vibrancy to it. It's the shade N12. So I thought this would just be nice to have to help blend out the red and just to add a little bit more variety to the looks, because if every single thing in the palette was red, I think it could end up being a little bit flat, a little bit like one-dimensional, so I wanted to have some pink in here. Next we have the shade Andromeda from Terra Moons, which is a beautiful like baby pink, super intense, slightly flaky shadow. I have it on my inner corner and it's just so pretty. I thought it would be kind of perfect for this. Next we have Bitten from Makeup Geek, which something about this kind of color, like this like reddy brown, like I feel like that reminds me the most of a Red Velvet Cupcake, because normally they're not like super bright red, even though that's what I wanted out of the palette. They're also not pink, they're like a brown with red undertones. So I thought Bitten was a good shade. This is super old, so for me, mine might swatch differently than other people's. It's a little bit more of like a soft kind of mid-tone shade, and I thought it would be good for like throwing in the crease. I feel like it used to be more pigmented, but again, super old, and I think it's been reformulated and everything now, but that's just what called to me in my personal collection. Next we have a hot pink matte. This is N17 from Brnovich. This one is super bright. Definitely a moment. Next we have the shade X16 from Brnovich, and this is such a stunning metallic hot pink. It is super pretty. I went kind of back and forth on whether to include this in the palette because I was like, am I doing too much pink? But I felt like I already had two really nice red shimmers, and this just adds so much, and it's so beautiful. Like such a stunning formulation, and it complements the reds really well. So I'm not mad at it at all. And I don't know if you can tell on camera a little bit, but it almost has like more of a red base with a pink shift, which is nice for this color story. And then next we have a like more like really bright pink toned red. This is from Coastal Scents. It's the shade Vibrant Red, and it's kind of funny because I chose that one specifically to have two reds in the palette because this other one is one of my favorites, but it's not available individually. So I was like, you know, at least we have this one, which is still a nice red, even if it's pink toned. As I was sitting down to film the intro portion of this video, I'd already done my makeup and everything. I saw a tweet that Coastal Scents actually just shut down, so now you can't get that either. But if you have it already, it is a good choice. Why is it so hard to find good matte red single shadows? I don't know, but there's Vibrant Red from Coastal Scents. Very sad day. Next we have one of my favorite metallic reds. This is ACI 13 from Adept Cosmetics. I'm not sure if this is still available on their website, but it is such a stunning, super intense, like just perfect red shadow. If this is no longer available, I have two other options for you. One is Divina Blazed, which is almost the same undertone, but I chose the Adept one because it's a little bit more intense, but Divina Blazed will give you a very, very similar look. And the other shadow I would recommend is from the It's Belle Break the Rules palette. This red right here called Rebel. It's a little tiny bit more orange, but it'll give you a very similar look. Next we have the shade Sauce from Colored Rain. This is one of my favorite reds. It's just like the perfect shade, super, super intense. It is a pressed pigment, but I just love it. Unfortunately, like I said, it's no longer available as a single. It's in the Colored Rain, oh gosh, I can't remember what they called it. The palette, I always forget what the palette's called. It is in the palette, but no longer as a single. However, I use this all the time and I feel like it's super, super nice. Of course, this is just my version. If you're wanting to recreate this or do it at home, you could use different reds from palettes that you have and, you know, just use your own collection to your advantage. This is for inspiration. It doesn't always mean like, oh, you need to go out and have like this exact same palette. Just, you know, use what you have, be inspired by what you have kind of thing. So let me go ahead and swatch that. I almost forgot. See how nice that shade is? Even though it that's a funny end to the swatch, it's fine. And then next we have one of my favorite satin shades ever. This is from Shine by SD Cosmetics. It's the shade Russet Red, and it is just so pigmented. It's a really beautiful, deep, true red shade. I'm picking it up very sparingly because it is intense, but look at that. Like, it's just the perfect satin. I love using this on the lower lash line. I have it on the lower lash line today. Then last but not least, we have like that kind of plummy reddy brown. This one I believe is from Brnovich. Yeah, it's Brnovich 203. And I do like this one. I wish I could have gone even deeper with this tone, but I didn't have anything else in my collection that quite felt right. I mean, this is still pretty nice and it does like add to the red without like changing the color or anything. So I like this one a lot. So there is my entire, like, my perfect red velvet cupcake inspired palette. I think it's super, super cute. I'm definitely inspired. I feel like you could do so many intense, beautiful pink or red or like in between kind of looks. Even what I did today, it was pretty easy to achieve, and it's just such an intense red smoky eye. Definitely not for the faint of heart, but I love how it turned out. So let's go ahead and jump on into the tutorial. Okay, I'm gonna start off with this light pink N12 from Brnovich, and I'm gonna use that a little bit further up in my crease just to help blend out the red that's gonna come next. I'm not building this up too much because I don't really feel the need to. I just want that to help me transition smoothly. Now I'm gonna go ahead and take Colored Rain Sauce, and I'm gonna start that off on my outer V and then bring it through my entire crease. I'm starting off with less because this is a pretty pigmented, intense red. So I kind of want to give myself time to blend it out and then build it up. And then once I kind of have it to blended to my heart's content, I'm just going to keep building it up so you can see that true red pigment. Right, now I'm going to go into the shade 203 from Brnovich, and I'm just going to grab a little bit of that and tap it on the outer V just to add a touch more depth. Just kind of lightly blending it out. I'm going to go into the shade Russet Red from Shine by SD Cosmetics, and I'm just going to pick up a little bit because it's uber pigmented, and I'm just going to pop that on the outer half of the lower lash line. Next, I'm going to go ahead and take this pink right here, X16 from Brnovich, and just picking it up with that same brush, tap off the excess, and popping that on the inner half of the lower lash line. Look how pretty. Did get a little tiny bit of fallout, but I'll wipe that away in a second. I'm going to go ahead and take some of Tara Moon's Red Giant, and I mean, I think it could be really beautiful on the inner corner, but I want to do something else there today, so I'm going to pop this underneath the brow bone. Obviously, this is just a very casual, work appropriate, Zoom call kind of look. I'm going to take this pink right here, Andromeda from Tara Moon's. I'm just going to pick that up, and I am going to spray it because it's a little bit more of a chunky shadow. Just popping that on the inner corner. So pretty. Now I'm going to go into ACI 13 from Adept Cosmetics and just pick that up with my finger, and I'm going to pop that all over my entire lid. So pretty. And then just tapping it into my crease a little bit. Really quickly off camera, I'm going to do some black liner in my waterline and tight line, throw on some mascara, and I'll be right back. So to finish up my face, I'm going to take that same first pink matte shade that I used in my crease and use that as my blush today. At first, I was about to put my brush into the palette, and I was like, I'm going to be as careful as I can be, and then I was like, I can literally just pull the shadow out. And of course, I'm going to go over top of that with the Red Giant highlighter. Just throwing that right on top. It's a whole moment. For lips, I'm going to go into the Lisa Eldridge Gloss Embrace Lip Gloss in the shade Blush. Alright, so this is the finished look. Definitely a very intense red smoky eye, so I hope you enjoyed this video. I would love to know if this palette was closer to what you imagined the Red Velvet Cupcake palette was going to be, or what you might have done differently. Of course, I just used what was in my collection. If I could just create colors, that would be a whole different story, but I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.